January 1956, Elvis Presley released the single Heartbreak Hotel. It was hugely successful and became a number 1 hit in America. Thus, an American icon was born. But what Elvis represented as an icon was always ambiguous. Through the theoretical frameworks of Marx's fetishism of commodities approach and Bakhtin's carnivalesque theory, we can see how Elvis was presented as an American icon to both black and white audiences. This ability to relate to both audiences played a large part in Elvis's success as a musician. However, it was not all positive. Elvis's rise coincided with the civil rights movement when racial tensions were at the forefront of national discourse. That Elvis's music and mannerisms on stage were reminiscent of black rhythm and blues rubbed a lot of conservative whites the wrong way. The sexual nature of his dance moves was derided as vulgar and depraved, with Ed Sullivan declaring Elvis unfit for family viewing. This was largely due to the racialization of Elvis's performance and the connection to racist fears of the stereotypical dangerous hypersexual black man. However, this attitude subsided after Elvis's initial rise to stardom, with white America quickly embracing him as their icon. His appeal as a white trash idol can be attributed to his southern working-class upbringing, his affinity for garish clothing and a life of excess, and his overindulgence in junk food. Elvis can be interpreted in this way through the ideas of Bakhtin and the carnivalesque concept. Bakhtin describes this concept as an experience where reality and social hierarchies are overturned by alternative or suppressed voices. This relates to Elvis as his success as an artist despite his lower class background is an example of a suppressed voice being heard. Bakhtin outlines 4 categories of carnivalesque. The first is free and familiar contact among people, in which all kinds of people come together in the carnival space, similar to how different people would come together at an Elvis concert, united only by their fandom. The second category is eccentricity, which relates to the freedom of self-expression and behavior which, to the non-carnival world, is deemed eccentric and inappropriate. Elvis can be understood through this category in several ways. In the earlier part of his career, Elvis's hip-thrusting and sexual image was seen as inappropriate and could be viewed as eccentric in that it went against social norms. In the latter part of his career and towards the end of his life, Elvis's drug abuse, weight gain and outrageous outfits fit into the category of eccentricity. The third category, carnivalistic mesalliances, describes the free and familiar attitude that spreads over everything. Bakhtin writes, all things that were once self-enclosed, disunified, distanced from one another by a non-carnivalistic hierarchical worldview are drawn into carnivalistic contacts and combinations. Carnival brings together, unifies, weds, and combines the sacred with the profane, the lofty with the low, the great with the insignificant, the wise with the stupid. This category explains how Elvis's music broke down both class barriers and geographical barriers, uniting the lower classes with the higher, the north with the south, but the biggest barrier was the race barrier. Elvis's popularization of black music garnered him both black and white fans, thus uniting the two races, if only in their musical tastes. The fourth and final carnivalesque category is profanation, the parody of all things sacred and a form of blasphemy. This is evident in Elvis obtaining a sort of higher authority with his title of the King. Bakhtin's approach shows why Elvis was embraced by the so-called white trash, but also by black audiences. In the carnival space, social barriers such as race and class simply don't exist. However, Elvis's use of the black R&B sound has long been a point of controversy. The common criticism is that Elvis has been credited with the birth of rock and roll, which overlooks and diminishes the many black artists who inspired his music. But as Todd Williams points out in his article, Why I Stopped Hating Elvis, Elvis wasn't the first white man to sing rock and roll. Bill Haley was charting 2 years before anyone had even heard of Elvis. Furthermore, Williams dispels the misconception that black artists like Chuck Berry, Little Richard and Bo Diddley made their mark before Elvis supposedly stole all of the credit. Actually, Elvis's first single, That's All Right, came a year before each of these artists' first singles. Yet, as Williams explains, many black children were conditioned to hate Elvis and what he represented, that white America wanted black music without a black face. This is largely due to the rumors that Elvis was racist. This misbelief has become grounded in popular culture surrounding Elvis. Public Enemy's 1989 hit Fight the Power featured the lyrics, "Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to me. Straight up racist that sucker was, simple and plain." However, these rumors are largely unfounded and derived from a quote that Elvis allegedly said in 1957, "The only thing Negroes can do for me is buy my records and shine my shoes." This quote has been denied by Elvis himself and has since been discredited, but it has created a legacy that leaves black audiences alienated to this day. Elvis's own views were not the only thing creating problems for his black fans. Erica Doss discusses the outrage she saw firsthand in 1994 when white fans at Elvis Week heard about his daughter Lisa Marie Presley marrying pop singer Michael Jackson. Doss recalls hearing racial slurs denouncing Jackson and writes, "The marriage of Elvis's daughter to a black man brought out deeply felt anxieties among many white fans about Elvis's power and authority, and their own, in an increasingly non-white America." Both interpretations of Elvis, the racist, cultural appropriating phony and the white trash king of rock and roll, are, according to Williams, largely fabrications. He argues these illusions were created to help both sides come to terms with the duality of his legacy. But how did Elvis create this dual legacy with such ease and success? This can be understood through the framework of Marx's fetishism of commodities concept. This theory helps us to understand Elvis, the brand. Marx explains that a social relation exists between producers and their products of labor, separate from any physical or material relation, which makes them commodities. Similarly, Elvis was marketed as a commodity. His value as a performer comes from the perceived social relation between him and his fans. Time magazine said of the singer, "Elvis was the first pop singer who had to be seen, not just heard, to be appreciated." Thus, Elvis's emergence as a complete brand, with a unique individual style, cemented his status as a cultural icon very early in his career. This allowed him to go beyond race and appeal to white audiences with his southern charm and working class roots, and black audiences with his utilization of soul, rockabilly, and R&B sounds. Throughout his career, but particularly in the years following his death, white Elvis fans have attempted to claim him as a white icon and ignore the black music and artists that inspired him. Yet when he was alive, Elvis refused to be restricted by notions of whiteness and white culture, allowing him to become not a white icon but an American icon.